You know that feeling when you realize someone's been playing you the whole time? That sick twist in your gut when the mask finally slips? Well, buckle up, because what I'm about to tell you about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle is going to make your head spin. And here's the kicker: it's not just gossip anymore. We're talking about potential crimes, fabricated evidence, and a legal system that seems perfectly fine looking the other way. So let's cut through the noise and talk about what's really happening here. Everyone knows Harry's been on this crusade against the British press, right? Phone hacking, privacy invasion, the whole 9 yards. And sure, we all thought this was Harry's vendetta, his way of avenging his mother's treatment by the media. But what if I told you this entire legal strategy wasn't Harry's idea at all? Remember that TV show Suits? Meghan played Rachel Zane, this brilliant paralegal who could memorize entire legal documents and recite case law like she was reading a grocery list. Well, turns out that wasn't just acting. Multiple sources are now suggesting that this whole lawsuit offensive, every legal maneuver, every strategic decision, that's Meghan's handiwork. The woman who played a legal genius on television apparently decided to direct a real-life courtroom drama, with her husband as the star plaintiff. But here's where this story takes a seriously dark turn. You know how Harry constantly invokes his mother's memory? How he talks about the way the BBC manipulated Princess Diana? How that journalist Martin Bashir allegedly used forged documents to secure that devastating interview? How the media's relentless pursuit contributed to the tragedy that followed? Well, according to emerging evidence, Harry might be doing the exact same thing he condemns. And the victim this time is a woman who's already endured unimaginable pain. Her name is Baroness Lawrence of Clarendon. Her teenage son Stephen was murdered in a brutal racist attack back in 1993. For years, she fought for justice in a system that initially failed her family spectacularly. And you know who actually helped her cause? The Daily Mail. Yes, that Daily Mail. The same paper Harry's now suing. They championed her story, kept pressure on the investigation, and helped bring her son's killers to justice when others had moved on. So picture this: you're Baroness Lawrence. You've spent decades fighting for your son's memory. Then Prince Harry, sixth in line to the throne, son of Princess Diana, approaches you. He says he's taking on the Daily Mail for phone hacking. He wants you to join the lawsuit. You've got the royal family backing you up. Why wouldn't you trust that? Here's why. There are now serious allegations that Harry's legal team, quite possibly with Meghan directing from behind the scenes, manufactured evidence to get Baroness Lawrence on board. We're not talking about creative interpretation here. We're talking about potentially fabricated witness statements, the exact same tactic Martin Bashir used on Diana, using a grieving mother, exploiting a black woman whose child was stolen from her by racist violence. Let that sink in for a moment. And it gets even more disturbing. One of the key witnesses in this case, a man named Gavin Burrows, actually testified in court that he never wrote the statement attributed to him. He stood there, under oath, and said the whole thing was fabricated. That's not a technicality. That's perjury. That's evidence tampering. That's the kind of thing that should stop a trial dead in its tracks and launch a criminal investigation. So, what did the judge do? Absolutely nothing. The case just rolled forward like nothing happened. Which raises a pretty uncomfortable question, doesn't it? What exactly is going on in that courtroom? Now, let's rewind the story a bit because this plot has more layers than you might think. Enter Sir Elton John, music legend, longtime friend of Princess Diana, and apparently someone with his own axe to grind against the British press. Back in 2016, Elton was sued by a former security guard for sexual harassment. He tried to keep the case quiet. He lost that bid. And by all accounts, he was furious about it. So what does a wealthy, well-connected celebrity do when they're angry at the media? Well, according to this theory, they find leverage. And that leverage came in the form of Meghan Markle. Think about it. Meghan had Hollywood connections. She had ambition that could be seen from space. And she was about to marry into the one family that could genuinely make the British press squirm. The allegation here is that Elton essentially recruited Meghan, who then influenced Harry, who was already drowning in his own resentment toward the media over his mother's death. It's like a revenge conspiracy with multiple players, each with their own grievances, all channeled through one lawsuit. And Harry even admits some of this in his book. He talks about how Elton John and a lawyer named David Sherborne were instrumental in getting this legal action off the ground. But here's what really makes this smell rotten. This case should have been dismissed years ago because of something called the statute of limitations. There's a time limit on when you can file these kinds of lawsuits, and that limit had already passed. But because Harry's involved, because he's the king's son, the judge allowed it to proceed anyway. That's not justice, that's preferential treatment. That's the legal system bending over backwards for royalty, while the rest of us would have had our cases thrown out before lunch. So let's take stock of where we are. You've got Elton John allegedly manipulating Meghan. Meghan allegedly orchestrating Harry's legal strategy. Harry's team allegedly fabricating evidence and exploiting a grieving mother to strengthen their case. A witness recanting his testimony and claiming he was set up. And a judge who seems remarkably unbothered by any of it. If this were a screenplay, you'd reject it for being too far-fetched. And where's Meghan now in all this chaos? Some observers are suggesting she got exactly what she wanted. She used Harry's royal platform and his rage against the British media to wage her own war against the press that criticized her. Mission accomplished. And now? Well, there are whispers she's already checked out emotionally. She got her revenge, established her narrative, and now she's building her own brand while Harry deals with the legal fallout. There's even speculation she's avoiding tax issues, which would explain why she's spending more time in the UK, despite the supposedly toxic relationship with the royal family. Now, about this judge. Any reasonable person would expect that when a witness stands up in court and says his testimony was fabricated, alarm bells would ring, investigations would be launched. But none of that happened. The case just continued as if a potential crime hadn't been exposed right there in the courtroom. So people are asking the obvious question. Is this judge compromised somehow? Does he have something to lose if he digs too deep? It's hard not to wonder if there's serious corruption at play here. And that's a terrifying thought when you consider this is supposed to be one of the world's most respected legal systems. And poor Gavin Burrows, the witness who blew the whistle on the alleged evidence fabrication, he's reportedly gone into hiding. Can you really blame him? The man probably feels like he's got a target on his back. When you're up against a prince, a music legend, their expensive lawyers, and a legal system that doesn't seem interested in the truth, what choice do you have? Then you've got media commentators wringing their hands saying things like, "Poor Harry, he doesn't know any better." Give me a break. Ignorance doesn't excuse potentially tampering with evidence and destroying people's lives. Harry is a nearly 40-year-old man. He's a prince with access to the best legal advisors money can buy. He doesn't get to hide behind ignorance when the consequences are this serious. And this whole narrative that Meghan's the puppet master pulling Harry's strings, as wild as it sounds, it actually makes sense when you look at the pattern. Meghan's always been intensely ambitious. She's proven she's willing to break protocol, burn bridges, and play hardball to get what she wants. Plus, she's got that paralegal training. She understands legal strategy. It's not that much of a stretch to imagine she designed this whole campaign. But here's the thing, and this is important. Even if Meghan orchestrated every single move, Harry's still responsible. He's the one who put his name on those lawsuits. He's the one who stood up in court. He's the one who authorized his legal team to recruit Baroness Lawrence. He doesn't get to point at his wife and walk away clean. Adults are accountable for their choices, even when those choices are influenced by someone else. If you or I fabricated evidence in a court case, we'd be arrested. We'd be charged with perjury, obstruction of justice, maybe conspiracy. We'd be looking at prison time. So why is Harry different? Why isn't anyone calling for a criminal investigation? It's like the entire world is too afraid to touch this because it involves the royal family. But that's absolute garbage. Justice is supposed to be blind. The law is supposed to apply equally to everyone, whether you're a prince or a plumber. And the fact that they allegedly used Baroness Lawrence in this scheme, that's what really crosses the line from unethical into unconscionable. This woman has already suffered more than most people can imagine. Her child was murdered because of the color of his skin. She spent years fighting a system that didn't care about her family's pain. And now, allegedly, she's been exploited again, this time by people claiming to fight for justice, to use her grief, to potentially falsify evidence in her name, to make her an unwitting pawn in someone else's revenge plot. That's not just wrong, that's evil. So what happens next? Your guess is as good as mine. Maybe the truth finally comes out in a way that can't be ignored. Maybe Harry, Meghan, Elton, and everyone involved finally face real consequences. Or maybe nothing happens. Maybe the rich and powerful continue playing by their own rules while the rest of us watch helplessly. But one thing's absolutely certain. This saga is a stain. It's a stain on the royal family's reputation. It's a stain on the British legal system. It's a stain on everyone who participated in or enabled this alleged scheme. And it's a sobering reminder that institutional rot runs deep when power goes unchecked. Here's what this really comes down to. Power corrupts. We've known that for centuries. And when you've got wealthy, entitled people who genuinely believe they're above the law, you end up with exactly this kind of mess. You get evidence fabrication. You get witnesses intimidated into silence. You get judges who look the other way. You get victims exploited twice, once by the original crime and again by the people claiming to seek justice. It's disgusting. But more than that, it's dangerous. Because if this is allowed to stand, if Harry and everyone involved walk away from this without consequences, what message does that send? It tells everyone that the rules don't matter if you're connected enough. It tells victims that the system will use them and discard them. It tells witnesses that telling the truth will only put you in danger. And you know what really gets me? The media acting all shocked and surprised, like they didn't see this coming. Some of us were raising red flags about this case months ago. Some of us were pointing out the inconsistencies, the suspicious timing, the questionable tactics. But we were dismissed as conspiracy theorists or troublemakers who just couldn't let them live their lives. Well, here we are. And it turns out those concerns were completely valid. But here's the thing, and I need you to really hear this. Even with corrupt judges, even with media complicity, even with the deck stacked in favor of the powerful, there's still hope for justice. Not because the system will suddenly fix itself, but because people are waking up. They're seeing through the carefully crafted narratives. They're realizing that Harry and Meghan aren't the innocent victims they've been portraying themselves as. And honestly, this whole thing reeks of desperation. Why would Harry risk his reputation, his family's legacy, his mother's memory, all for a lawsuit that should have been dismissed on technical grounds years ago? Either he's hiding something significant, or he's so consumed by bitterness that he's lost all perspective. Neither option is particularly flattering. As for Meghan, I'm starting to think there's a genuine question about her capacity for empathy. Who uses a grieving mother as a pawn in a revenge scheme? Who manipulates their own husband into potentially committing crimes? She's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers, and she doesn't seem to care who gets sacrificed along the way. The truly sad part is that this whole mess is destroying what little faith people still had in institutions. The royal family, the legal system, the media. People are losing trust in everything. And honestly, can you blame them? One day, we'll see real accountability. Maybe we'll see Gavin Burrows get the protection he deserves. Maybe we'll see Baroness Lawrence finally get the genuine justice she's been fighting for all these years. But even if none of that happens, we still have to keep trying. Because the alternative is accepting that the powerful can do whatever they want without consequences. And I refuse to live in that world. So let's keep the pressure on. Let's keep shining a light into these dark corners where corruption breeds. Let's keep fighting for justice, not because it's easy or because we're guaranteed to win, but because it's right. And remember something important. Don't let them silence you. Don't let them intimidate you. Don't let them make you feel crazy for seeing what's right in front of your face. You're not crazy. You're awake. And in a world where so many people are sleepwalking through life, being awake is the most dangerous thing you can be. So stay strong, stay informed, keep asking questions, keep demanding answers, keep fighting the good fight. Because the world needs people like you now more than ever. People who won't back down just because the opposition seems overwhelming. People who understand that justice isn't something that's handed to you. It's something you have to fight for every single day.